Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a little bit of disassembly and maintenance for you on this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Knives Pacific Salt number 2. This is, for those of you, whoa, that just came right on loose. For those of you curious, this is basically a Spyderco Endura 4, just a little saltier with, special steels and whatnot that are designed to be a completely rust-proof. Or at least sure as heck rust-resistant. Whether you want to call something rust-proof or not, that's kind of a separate question, but this is a knife that is designed to be very, very well suited to wet and salty conditions. So, anyways, let's go ahead and take this guy apart. One of the things that I am very curious about is that from the outside, this sure doesn't look like it has any liners at all. And that would be one major distinction vis-a-vis the Endura 4, as I recall. I don't have an Endura 4 on me handy, but I believe that to be a knife with liners, much like the Spyderco Delica does, with a nested liner underneath there. And so as a result, I think this might actually be very different in disassembly. So I'm going to go ahead and bother doing that, even though this is sort of a version of an existing piece. So my goal here is going to be to pop this guy up. Okay. So this is indeed fundamentally different than the Delica Endura previously. What we have here is a very different... Wow. Okay, so we have a lot of skeletonization here of the FRN, which is interesting. They've done a lot of work to try and remove weight here, which is funny because the knife itself is already very lightweight. They have threaded inserts for all of the plastic areas where screws need to go in. So for the 4-position clip as well as for the back spaces there. We have one very nice improvement vis-a-vis the Delica and the Endura is that there is not that little post down in there, which makes this guy much, much easier to put back together, I hope, I assume, because, well, yeah. And then, aside from that, it should be pretty straightforward here. There are no washers or anything like that, partly because washers are a thing that could, in theory, corrode a little bit, and partly because, well, it's FRN. They're not quite as crucial, right? The action on this guy is a backlock. It's never going to be like, oh my god, smooth drop shutty, but, it works. So, the construction here is, in fact, very boring, I would even venture to say. But I mean that in a good way. It's a little bit different from Spyderco, but there's really not that much going on that's of particular note. What we see here also is that there is relatively little metal inside this guy. Aside from the pivot, the screws, etc., as well as these wired threaded inserts here, really, there's not, the liners aren't going to corrode because there aren't any freaking liners, right? It makes this guy, this just enhances its rust-proofitude all the more, and all of these parts are also coated with some sort of what appears to be like a DLC sort of thing, which again is going to be in the service of rust-proofing. So that actually means that we are done here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply a little knife pivot lube to the inside of this guy, because, well, why not, right? That'll give me a little bit of extra lubricity here as I go about doing this. But really, I mean, the knife is, yeah. Let's just do a little more. Because what am I if not going to over-lubricate the world, right? All right, so we pop that back in place. One thing to note is that the pivot is D-shaped, which prevents it from spinning around. So you want to make sure that you spin that right round, like a record baby until it is in the right position. That's a really dated reference. Kids ask your parents, grandparents, something like that. Either way, this is very easy to put back together, unlike the Delica and Endura, because I am able to do this. I'm able to tension this little bar here by pressing in, because it is inside this groove rather than being held in place by a little plastic pin. That is a win. Very, very strongly so. Now I just need to snap everything the rest of the way together here. Question is, why is that not happening? There we go. Pop that in place. Do I have to... Interesting. He says, oh, super easy to disassemble, but then turns out maybe not as much. I need to get this little protuberance here around the spring here. That is my fundamental problem. Does it have to go... Oh, maybe that's my issue. Oh, that's going to make this a bit more of a pain. It looks like this spring might actually have to go inside here, rather than going rather than being held in that place. So that does mean I'm going to have to do this in the classical Delica Endura style approach. That's kind of a shame, but not the end of the world. This is because, of course, the pivot is only keyed on the one side there. So I don't want to flip that pivot around. That would be unwise. Whoop, and now I've thrown that out. Okay, so what we're going to do instead here is we're going to reassemble it as so. We're going to treat this like a good old-fashioned Delica Endura. That's a little disappointing. But that's okay. We're going to go on ahead and put the scales themselves back together. The scales, as my vocal cords just explode in the middle of the discussion. Put the scales back together. I am going to go ahead and use a little bit of thread locker here because this is still metal-on-metal contact. So make sure that those are locked in place. And then go ahead and we tighten. Beautiful. Don't want to over-tighten that. I'd hate to pull out those inserts or anything like that. Don't know whether that would be susceptible, but, you know, there's a limit to the amount of torque I want to put on something embedded in plastic, right? Okay. Am I being dumb here? No, I don't think I am. Because my goal is going to be to reinsert this bar here, basically, once the blade is in place. So, actually, I am being slightly dumb in that I probably should have put the blade on there before I did any of this, but that was only very slightly dumb. You know, in the grand scheme of dump, that was pretty, I feel like I'm doing pretty okay still in that way. But anyways, so we'll put this back together like so. This is one of the times where I'm sort of reminded that I have taken apart and put together a lot of freaking knives. So as a result, I maybe have some instincts about these things that are a little tricky to develop at first. You will get there, and I'm not saying I'm good at it, by the way. I'm just saying I have instincts. Instinct is just instinct. That doesn't mean good or bad. But anyways, I digress. You know, it is nice to be able to look at something and go, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to do this in the same way that I did these other 15 things. Just because that makes it maybe a little easier. Okay. Now, here's the plan. I'm going to take this little guy right here. I'm going to insert it into this area here. And then my goal is going to be to press this down into a position whereby I can push through. And this, I believe, goes in, because this has a D shape to it as well. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll thread it in from this side, because that's the side with the D shape. And then my goal here is just going to be to, and is it going to be better to do this with the knife open or closed? Probably open. So now I'm going to basically make the knife engage, lock engage, that is. There we go. And now I just need one extra thumb, and I can push that through. Beautiful. So now I have pushed this through while pushing in the lock bar there, and we are good to go. 8 minutes, not so bad. Would have been a little easier if the side that you took the thing apart from was the same side that had the spring captive. But whatever, not the end of any worlds. We were able to pull it off. That, by the way, is the same technique you can use on the Spyderco Delica and the Endura, etc. There, you are required to do it that way by a different design choice. Design flaw in my estimation. But anyways, because they've used a little plastic bar where they could have just, you know, made the whole thing molded like this, or more specifically, put a little metal pin. But anyways, no play, easy shut. Boom, there you go. All right, so there you go. That was a disassembly and maintenance for you of the Spyderco Pacific Salt number 2. And I hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.